get something that I've been living on the edge.
Welcome back to Be My Guest. Joining me on the line right now is Curtis Joseph, former NHL goaltender, and notwithstanding his brilliant hockey career, the reason I wanted to talk to him today is about horses, because he's a horse owner and he's got a horse racing, a stakes race tomorrow at Woodbine. The horse is called Moment of Majesty, and it's racing in a race called the Maple Leaf Stakes, which is somewhat appropriate because Curtis Joseph's spent several years playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He certainly was a fan favorite. Curtis, how you doing this morning?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. So tell me about Moment of Majesty, and I understand now you actually won't be able to see the race, but just tell me about your interest in horse racing and what you like about horse and what you like about it.
Well, I've been a horse owner since '95 and got into it through Gary Lehman and Donnie Meehan and Sue Leslie, who's been our trainer since the inception. And I think we've been to the Queen's Plate 3 times, never won it, but it's been a great source of fun and camaraderie with friends. And whenever you get a good one, it makes it all that much more better.
Moment of Majesty has had a couple of stakes wins this year. The horse has only raced 6 times, has 2 wins, a second, earnings of $220,000 and change. By any standard of record, that's a good year to win $220,000. But to win a stakes race, I mean, what's the feeling of actually being there in the winner's circle when you win a stakes race?
Oh, it's a great feeling, and this horse is a beautiful horse, and probably the closest I've been to a horse, just because I bred the horse. I own the mare and bred her to St. Liam. So I got to pick the mating and watch the horse grow up, get to the track, and she's a beautiful horse who likes to come from behind. And she's won 2 state races this year and on different surfaces too, so she's very versatile. She won on turf, obviously, and on the poly. So this one's on the poly. She runs mostly on turf, but we'll see what happens.
You know, you brought up a whole bunch of different aspects there. We're talking about your involvement in breeding. You're talking about various tracks. Just a little bit that you're talking to me right now clearly indicates to me you've gained an understanding of the sport, because it's a very complex sport. You're dealing with all types of, like you said, the various surfaces. You're dealing with just, your different breeding, sires, stallions, mares, this and that. So how long did it take you to really get a firm understanding of the sport and for you to feel confident enough to get involved in breeding?
Well, I learn a little bit each year, and just from talking to trainers and Sue and jockeys like Robbie Landry, etc. Just from talking to people and just seeing it for myself. And they really are athletes, and it's competition, and I understand that side of it wholeheartedly. So, it's a complex sport. People don't realize, how many different variables there are. But this horse has got a lot of class, and I hope to have her as a broodmare, for a long time, and be able to breed her and get another great racehorse like her.
Again, we're talking to Curtis Joseph, former NHL goalie. You just mentioned about athletes, and when I think about jockeys basically, they are very thin, but they're very strong, very muscular. I mean, they have to be that way to steer a 1,000-pound animal. How much appreciation do you have for jockeys as athletes?
Oh yeah, they're great athletes. Like you said, their shoulders and their legs are so strong, and they have to be fearless. I mean, when you play hockey, you have to be fearless also, and the best players usually are fearless. So I think the same holds true with the jockeys. They have to be able to go in and out of horses and through traffic, and they do have to have a stopwatch in their head. They have to know the speed of the race, when to make their move, and what the pace is, how your horse feels underneath you. All of those things makes a great jockey. And when you see a win by a nose at the line, that's the jockey's doing, and they'll tell you there's no better feeling than winning by a nose.
What about the horses? I mean, because often, people who don't really understand horse racing will look at the jockey and realize that as much as he is an influential part of the race, really, if you don't have the horse, you're not going to go anywhere. And you being a former athlete, can you look at these horses and appreciate them as athletes? We talked about you appreciating the jockeys as an athlete, but what about the horses?
Oh yeah, they are athletes, and sometimes they have off days. You wonder why your horse finishes 7th or 8th, and they just had an off day. They didn't feel like running, or something happened. They got a cold or something. But there's so many variables. I know Moment of Majesty's last race, she ran great, but the pack was so tight she had nowhere to run, which is unfortunate because we had a lot of horse in that race, and but that's horse racing. So she's running great, and let's hope she puts on a good show tomorrow.
Many years ago, Gary Lehman and Ed Olchuk had horses together, and I was covering the horse races for the Toronto Sun. They used to talk to me quite a bit. I could really, appreciate their understanding, and Eddie really did well for himself later on. He won I think it was like a pick 6 a few years ago, fairly large sum of money that he won.
Oh, Eddie did?
Eddie did. It was a lot of money. Eddie was also famous when the Newark Rangers won the Stanley Cup. He took the Stanley Cup to Belmont Park. So Eddie's really, often when I hear him on TV, they'll bring up horse racing, and I'm sure if the NHL season was going on right now and there were games, they'd be asking Eddie about the Breeders' Cup because he's pretty fond of touting horses or just talking about it. There's a real passion for them. And I know that it's not just you, it's not just Eddie. There's been a lot of hockey players. Serge Savard was a big horse racing fan. And are you aware of that there's something about hockey players and horses that there seems to be an interest there? And I don't know if it's because sometimes, hockey players have a lot of off time during games and some of them like to spend it, going to the racetrack.
Well, it's a great sport, and I always liken horses to dogs. They're beautiful animals with a great soul, so you can fall in love with them pretty easily. And I know I've talked to Eddie about horse racing. Dennis Savard is a big horse racing fan. Joel Quenneville is a big racing fan, and then just the energy, the excitement, the thrill of the racing, and probably a little bit of betting too. So there's a lot of components there, and I certainly love the animal itself and the excitement that a race brings.
Yeah, I ran into Dennis Savard a few years ago. He won the Prince of Wales Stakes at Fort Erie. I know he was really happy, and you could just tell that, here's an individual who's had a lot of, successful moments in his hockey career, but there was just a look in his eyes that it was just excitement. And again, that's something I guess you can really only appreciate. You're a hockey player, but just that excitement, that winning feeling that you get winning a race and certainly being an owner of the winning horse.
Yeah, in hockey, we're in control of our destiny, and if we do well, then we expect to do well, and we take losses a little harder than we do wins for sure. But this in horse racing, it's out of your control, so it really is a little bit of more of an anxious feeling. And I know I get nervous before a big race, and hope that she breaks out of the gauge and all of those things. So it's really out of your control, but when you get a good horse, there's no better feeling.
Yeah, you just touched upon something I want to ask about that. You were a goalie, and goalies, are supposedly they're very individual, and other players on the team aren't supposed to bother them, leave them alone. You're in your crease, that kind of this little area, this little zone where it's just you, and I'm wondering how that compares to that feeling of anxiety, if you had anxiety before games, to the anxiety of waiting before the start of a race.
Well, I know in goaltending you're in a position where you have to react to what's happening around you, and you never know what's going to happen from night to night. Whereas if you're a forward, you make things happen, and you can go out and hit. If you're not scoring, you can go out and hit people and still have a good game. But being a goalie, you can be pretty bad if the circumstances around you aren't going too well. So there's a lot of anxious moments before hockey games, and especially big games, Game 7s in the playoffs. But it's very similar to the anxious moments where you don't have a lot of control in horse racing. Anything can happen, and you think of the possibilities. And I'm a dreamer by heart, and I've got a great horse there in Moment of Majesty, and I do get anxious before every race. I'm going to try and get somewhere where I can see it. I'm out west, Western Canada on Saturday, but I'm going to try and get someplace where I can see it.
That's great. And just a little off topic here. The other day I had Greg Harrison in studio, who the mask painter. Did he ever paint any of your masks?
Yeah, he did early on, early in my career before I switched to high-tech. And he did it the old-fashioned way. You know, he put the plaster on your face, and you'd lie down, and you'd have a straw in your mouth so you could breathe. And he was one of the pioneers of mask making.
Yeah, he told me also that some goalies would just get kind of very anxious because of that feeling when they put the plaster on their face and the straw. I guess that sense of claustrophobia. Did you experience that?
No, I didn't experience claustrophobic at all, but I could see how that could happen.
Did you give him instructions about what you wanted the mask to look like, or just sort of give him just the basic idea, and then he delivered the mask, and what would your reaction have been like when you saw it?
Well, you'd look at other masks that he had made, and you would give him a direction, but he really is the artist, and you have to trust that he would do something great for you. So it really was in his hands also.
You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you just about the situation that's going on right now with the NHL lockout. You've been through it before. Do you see the need for what's going on right now, at least, or is this something that you just wish wouldn't happen, but it's just a product of business?
Well, it is a product of business, and I wish it would not happen. It was devastating to lose a year of your career. I mean, the average career length's 5 years. So as a player, you're going to give up. For the average player, he's going to give up 20% of his career over a lockout, and at the end of the day. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for the game, but it is business, and two sides have to hash out details. And the owners are locking the players out, so they're in control, and they feel like they lock you out when they feel like they have the most leverage. And right now they have the most leverage, so we'll see what happens.
You've been through, if I'm not mistaken, two of them, and I think in one situation you did play for half a year. In the other situation, again, you were out for the whole year. Is that correct?
Yeah, two of them for sure, and one was a whole year, and the other one was half a year.
What was the decision to at least? Why did you try to play at least? The first time it happened, get some games in there. It was a contracted season, and why did you not do it the second time?
Why did I not? Sorry, I didn't understand the question. Why did I not?
When there was going to be the lockout the second time and it was going through the whole year, why did you have any plans about possibly playing that year, going to play elsewhere, or did you just decide basically?
Well, I was in a different situation. I have a family, so I couldn't very well go over to Europe, and when you think it's going to end. It could have ended any time. So with a family, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's better for European players. They just go right back to their home base and they play. So it doesn't affect all the players in a way. It only affects. It definitely affects the North American players more so.
It's amazing what you just said, because I never saw it from that point of view. You only think of it from the player and the owner's point of view, but you don't see it from the family, the wives, the kids, and that sort of thing, and how that fits into the whole equation. It's an interesting point of view, the way you just put it there. Looking at it right now, do you think that the lockout's going to go a full season just as it did before, or there'll be some sort of resolution?
Well, it's looking like that, but you never know what the owners are thinking. They obviously can go the whole year, but my only argument is, and I believe that owners should make money. They're taking the big risk. They should make money. But my beef is, why isn't there another team in Ontario? Like, why isn't there? I mean, it would make a $50 million profit. Why isn't there another team in Ontario, or two more teams, and get them out where they're losing $30 million? That's just good business.
You're talking about take a team like Phoenix where they're losing money and just transplant the team into Toronto or Hamilton or somewhere within this area, because this area could have another team, maybe even two more teams, because the interest is that great, while the interest in some parts of the U.S., I just mentioned Phoenix, it's lukewarm at best.
Listen, you're locking me out because it's a business? Is that what you're saying? You're locking me out because it's a business? All right, let's shore up business. What are the numbers? Okay, put a team where it's going to make money. I'm losing money because you can't run a business? That's what bothers me.
And there's talk about possibly putting a team in Markham. The people that are putting together a new arena there have not said that's why they're doing it, because I don't think they want to put it out there and create kind of false expectations, or at least maybe rub the NHL the wrong way, which is, I think, Jim Balsley, that was part of his problem. Can you foresee a team being there in Markham in a few years from now?
Well, maybe if they do the due diligence and they deem that it's going to make a huge profit, then why wouldn't you do it? I mean, yeah, Jim rubbed him the wrong way. Is that a reason not to do business? Like in business, don't people negotiate and rub you the wrong way? But at the end of the day, you get a deal done because you want to make money.
That's a good point. Have you ever thought about getting into the game, like at least in a management level, a coaching level, or just? I think right now you're doing a little bit of minor hockey coaching, but have you thought about doing something on a more grander scale?
Yeah, I've thought about it for sure, but I'd really have to start at the lower level and learn. I don't want to just jump into a situation where you're not knowledgeable, because I have a lot of respect for the people who run organizations. They've done they've put in their time, and they've done a lot of work, and they're there for a reason.
You know, Curtis, I want to thank you for your time today. You've been very generous, and some of the insights that you've given us, both not just about horse racing but in hockey, have been quite interesting. Yeah. Good luck tomorrow with Moment of Majesty. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the Breeders' Cup if you can see it. It's the greatest day in third, or it's the greatest.
Oh, is it ever?
Yeah. So, and I hope one day you find yourself in the winner's circle for the Queen's Plate and enjoy horse racing. It is one of the greatest games in the world.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Hopefully, maybe it's a Colt by Moment of Majesty out of Moment of Majesty. We'll see. That's my prediction.
That's a great prediction. Great hope. It's all about hopes and dreams. Thanks a lot, Curtis.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
It's Curtis Joseph, former NHL goalie. I mean, that's telling it like it is. You know, he was very, very honest about his thoughts, you know, about the NHL lockout and what's going on right now, and his suggestion about why is there not another team in Toronto, or at least in this area. Makes a lot of sense. People look at what's going on in the U.S., places like Phoenix and other cities where they're just struggling to keep the teams alive there, and there's so much interest, you know, in Toronto, in the the Southern Ontario area, the belief that there could be more than just one team, you know, in and around the Greater Toronto area. Hopefully, at some point that does happen, because the interest is great. The NHL lockout is probably being felt as great, maybe the greatest of all, you know, right here in Toronto, and that's nothing to say about, Edmonton or Montreal or any of the other Canadian cities. Winnipeg just got a team back. But say what you will about the NHL and being a North American game, a global game, because you've got international players there, but realistically, it's a Canadian game. That's where the game has its roots, and that's where a lot of the players come from. As Curtis Joseph said, he hopes there's going to be a resolution. You never know. It's an interesting... we'll just follow it day by day. This whole NHL lockout thing just is it's kind of a moving target, and we'll see what happens. When we come back, we'll be joined by Joe Fan, who's going to give us his picks on the Breeders' Cup 2-day event. He's going to tell you how to make money, because that's what he does. He makes money. He's Joe Fan. He's a wise guy. We'll be back right after this.